Hi everyone, in today's video, I'm going to share with you my entire investment portfolio. This is a video that was highly requested by many of you over the past year or so, and I'm finally sitting down to do this today. So I don't have anything fancy, and I'm certainly not going to use any fancy financial jargon. I want this to feel like a cozy sit down, just me and you, one-on-one chit chat with a friend or a sister. I feel like there's so much of a taboo around talking about money, and especially with us women, I feel like there's a great opportunity to create a community here where we can talk and share openly and learn from one another. I personally have been very passionate about financial empowerment and financial literacy and independence at an early age, and I've been investing for over 2 decades. I'm currently in my mid-40s, which means that I started investing actively in my early 20s. Full disclaimer, I am not a financial professional. I have no certification in any type of finance, anything. A lot of you had assumed that I worked in the finance industry, and that is not the case. I spent over 20 years in corporate America, and just about 2 years ago, I retired early in my mid-40s. And so everything that I know about investing was through trial and error and through reading lots and lots of books, listening to podcasts, and just talking to people. I have made a lot of mistakes, and I've gone through quite a bit of ups and downs over the years. Especially in my early years, I was quite arrogant and I thought I could beat the market. I thought I could pick the hot stocks and do sensationally all by myself and do what no one else could do. I thought I could predict the market. And since then, I've become a much more chill investor in that I'm more passive. I take a very steady long-term approach, and it's quite boring. It's not nearly as exciting. There's no like gambler's high, there's no adrenaline rush, but it has turned out to be much more effective, much more peaceful on my mind, less worry, less panic, less emotional ups and downs with the market and the news headlines. So if you are looking to become a steady, consistent investor, to build your net worth over time, to build a nest egg for yourself so that you can take care of yourself in retirement, take care of the next generation, possibly build generational wealth, if that is you, then I hope that you will get some benefit out of this video. I'm going to be as open as possible while still maintaining my privacy. So I'm going to share with you my entire investment portfolio and the breakdown of my allocation, meaning exactly what I'm invested in. And I'm going to share with you percentages, but I'm not going to share with you exact dollar amounts, because that's private, but also because it's not going to be helpful to you to know the exact dollar amount. It's more helpful for others out there to know what percentage I'm putting aside, what percentage is allocated to certain investments, because then no matter how much money you have, whether it's more or less than me, you can still get a sense of the total picture through the percentages. So before I dive in, a little bit about me and my background so you have some context. If you are new to my channel and you're wondering why in the world is she making a video about investments or personal finance when all of her videos that I see are about luxury and fashion? Well, I've always been a big believer in balance. And while I'm all about having fun and enjoying nice things, whether it be material things or experiences, I've also always had my eye on the bigger priorities. And for me, that is freedom. Financial freedom is true freedom in the sense that it gives you choices, it gives you options, and it also gives you time. You can reclaim the time that you have to spend working for other people, right? Or working for a business. Once you have financial freedom, you give yourself the gift of time, and you give yourself the gift of many different avenues that you can explore versus being trapped in a cycle of having to make your next paycheck. So I knew from a pretty early age that I wanted to hustle and put a lot away, be more aggressive with my savings and investments, and then have the option to retire early. So that's the backdrop. I am in my mid-40s. I've got 2 teenagers, so I'm living the mom life, and I'm married to my college sweetheart. So we've been married for 20 years now. And while we do share all of our finances jointly as a team, I've always been the one to manage our finances. So when it comes to like household bills or short-term savings or longer-term retirement investments, that's primarily been my role. My husband does have his own investments that he manages because he has his own retirement accounts. So for the purposes of this video, what I did was I broke out the numbers just to be crystal clear. the investment portfolio that I'm going to share with you today is only going to include my numbers. So what it doesn't include is my husband's retirement accounts, his own individual investments. That's not included in my portfolio numbers today. Just because I want this video to be relevant to both married couples and individuals, I broke it all down. So this is just my funds, okay? And then also when we have shared assets such as real estate, I divided the property value so that half of it is my husband's and half of it is mine for the purposes of this video. So I only included my half portion in my portfolio breakdown. Hope that makes sense. Also, what is not included in this portfolio breakdown is the money that we put aside for our children. So like I said, we have 2 children and we have 2 accounts for each of them. One is the 529 college fund, and we contribute to that on a regular basis. Our expectation is that 100% or close to 100% of their college education will be funded through their 529s. And then they also have brokerage accounts in their names. So we set up custodial brokerage accounts. And so that means I'm the custodian. So the accounts are under my name and we contribute to them monthly, a set amount every month for each child. And we've been doing that since they were about maybe 6 or 7 years old. So the money has continued to balloon over time. And by law, depending on what state you're in, there's a specific age when custodial brokerage accounts will automatically change ownership. So when they reach a certain age, it could be 19, 20, 21, 23 years old, depending on your state. You just have to look it up. At that age, it automatically triggers an ownership change. So instead of it being my account, it would automatically transfer to become theirs. So their name would become the primary account holder. So for these 2, the 529s and the custodial brokerage accounts, I am not including them in my investment portfolio breakdown because I don't consider it to be my money. The last thing that I am not including in this breakdown is any life insurance policies. Because there are stipulations around insurance, I don't really consider it to be part of my net worth, so I'm not including that either. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into my investment portfolio, and I know that there's going to be a lot of people out there who are curious about how much I have. What is my net worth number? And because this is the internet and this is for public consumption, I'm not comfortable. As you know, I'm a very private person, but I will share that it is a quite robust amount, especially at my age, and I really don't think I need to worry about money. So the breakdown. So as of today, the largest portion of my investment portfolio is in the stock market. 52% of my money is in stocks. And I'm going to break this down for you. So of the 52% in stocks, 84% are in index funds that track the S&P 500. If you want more specifics, I will share with you that my favorite mutual fund is VFIAX, which is the Vanguard version of the S&P 500 tracking mutual fund. And for ETFs, then I like VOO, which is VOO. So you can take a look at both, do your comparisons, see which one you prefer. VFIAX has a $3,000 minimum to start with investing, and then VOO does not have a minimum at all. Okay, so if 84% of my stock investments are in index funds that track the S&P 500, where's the rest? Well, 10% is in another index fund that tracks the total stock market. I use VTSAX. I don't know why, but over the last few years, I just got this idea that I wanted more exposure to the total stock market versus just the S&P 500. So that's 10% of my stock allocation. And then 9% is in individual stocks. Now, I do not encourage stock picking, trying to time the market, but I will say it's just in my nature to want to have fun with a little sliver of my investment portfolio, a little bit allocated to individual stocks of companies that I'm personally interested in or I'm following. I used to invest in primarily individual stocks because, like I said in the beginning of the video, I was quite arrogant and thought I could beat the market, which is very rare to do. Even professionally trained financial experts most of the time cannot beat the market. But still, knowing that, I have just a few stocks that I'm still dabbling in. And I think just 9% of my entire stock portfolio is not too risky Keep in mind, this is not even of my entire investment portfolio. It would be even less if I factor in all of my investments outside of the stock market. So I feel like I'm still being quite conservative. Then 27% of my investment portfolio is allocated towards real estate. It's income producing rental property. That's not a primary residence. So we do have a condo here in Manhattan that we rent out to tenants, and we've owned it for about 10 years. Now, like I said, I divided the value of the property in half, so I did not include my husband's half, just to keep this neat and tidy when I break down my portfolio. Then 20% is in Bitcoin. And I think a lot of you are going to gasp at this. I just recently started getting into Bitcoin over the last few years. I probably was a late bloomer. I got into the game later than some of the early folks. And I don't invest that much in Bitcoin, and I do use the ETF. So I use the Fidelity ETF, which is FBTC. Now, if you're really tech savvy and you want to learn how to buy actual Bitcoin and store it in your own personal hard wallet, you can go ahead and do that. I don't have the time, capacity, or skill to do that. So Fidelity is one of those few banks that actually hold actual Bitcoin in a hard wallet. So all of the shares that you buy in their Bitcoin ETF is backed by actual Bitcoin. So that's why I feel comfortable. It's not just like a number on a screen. They actually own Bitcoin. So FBTC is what I'm invested in. And like I said, it's just been the last several years. I know that 20% sounds like a lot. I was thinking I would not exceed like 5 to 10% of my investment portfolio, but it just sort of ballooned. So I'm at 20% now, and I might have to adjust my numbers. So for both my index fund investments and my Bitcoin investments, I have it on autopilot. I've mentioned this in previous videos. If you want to learn more about my money principles and my approach, you can go to my playlist. It's called Money and Mindfulness, and I've got all kinds of videos there that might be of interest to you. But I've always said in the past that when it comes to how I invest or how I manage my money in general, I have a set it and forget it kind of strategy. It's very boring, but it keeps me sane. So I have a set amount set every month on the specific date where money goes to my index fund investments, money goes to my Bitcoin investments, money goes to my savings account, money goes to my kids' accounts, money goes to my donations. It is all automated. So it takes out all the thinking, all the doubting, all the panic. I just don't really pay much attention to it. So I may have to play around with the numbers of my settings, maybe reduce my contributions to the Bitcoin ETF going forward, because I do think 20% is kind of a lot for me. And I still want to be a bit conservative. The index funds just have a longer history, have a longer track record, and Bitcoin to me is still very new. It is new, so that's why I'm having these thoughts. The remaining 1%, only 1%, is in cash at the moment. And you might be thinking, oh, what is she doing? Okay, I have to explain. I had a lot of cash sitting in a high yield savings account for the past few years. Too much cash, meaning that I was losing money. Because even if you have it in a high yield savings account, maybe at like 3.5%, if you're lucky 4%, that's barely keeping up with inflation. If inflation goes higher than that, you are losing value on your money every day. Your dollar is getting weaker every day, right? So in a sense, by keeping that much cash in a savings account, I was losing money or barely keeping up with inflation. I was also losing out on opportunity to grow the money by investing it, right? Because saving is not the same thing as investing. Now, some of you may already know this if you know my story, but I was in the corporate world for over 20 years. And even though I loved my work, I just kind of burned out. And I always knew that I wanted to retire early. So just about 2.5 years ago, I did take that leap and I left the corporate world. I left it all behind. I left the rat race. And I thought at the time, in order to do that, I need to have more of a safety net to just feel that it's okay to take that chance, take that risk. I'm very, very conservative, like I said. So I had saved up over 2 years of living expenses, and I had parked that cash in a high yield savings account. You see now, you get what's going on here, and that was just too conservative. So over the last 2 years, I've started to pull money out of that cash savings account, and I started allocating it to more investments, stock market and Bitcoin, mostly the stock market. And thankfully, over the last 2 years, that money has continued to grow. It certainly has outpaced any interest I would have gotten in a high yield savings account, it certainly has outpaced inflation, even with the ups and downs and the roller coaster of what's been going on in the economy and in the stock market. It still is doing far better than if I had just kept it in my savings account. So I've whittled it down so much. I'm kind of extreme, right? I go from one side of the pendulum to the other. So now it is only a couple of months worth of living expenses. And traditionally, experts say that you should have 3 to 6 months of living expenses in your savings or in your emergency fund. If you want to be more conservative, 6 to 9 months. And if you feel like there's going to be some major life transition, up to 12 months, a full year of living expenses. So you would calculate how much money it costs you to live every month on all of your essentials, the basics, food, shelter, etc. And then you multiply that by 12, and that would be a very robust emergency fund. Like I said, now that I've whittled away and moved that money out into investments, my cash is maybe only a couple of months of living expenses. So that's one of the changes that I want to make this year. I want to increase that. I think it's a good idea to just have a nice cash buffer in case, You never know. One other thing that I will add is that I also owned treasury bonds, but I've completely gotten rid of all of those as of last year, 2025. I just felt like they're not keeping up with inflation at all. They're not really doing anything for me, and they are a more conservative approach to offsetting risk if you're heavily invested in the stock market, for example. But at this point in my life, as I'm in my mid-40s, I have a lot of time to stay in the market, even if it were to continue to dip. I have time to ride it out. I'm not looking to pull out my retirement funds or to use up my investments anytime soon, probably not for at least 20 years. So if you're in this life stage, similar life stage, or even younger, you have a lot of time. You don't have to be super, super conservative and get a bunch of bonds. But if you are in a later life stage and you feel like you need to be more conservative naturally because you're probably going to pull out from your retirement funds in the next, let's say, year or two, then yes, it probably makes sense for you to have bonds to offset the risk. But for me, it just didn't add up. So I got rid of my treasury bonds. I also have this burning desire to own more real estate outside of New York City. I have been itching. I look at listings all of the time. And I know that this desire will probably not go away, but I'm being super, super cautious about making any moves at this time. I mean, I've been thinking about this for the last few years, but I don't want to buy the wrong property and essentially buy myself a whole lot of stress or headache and a lot of maintenance. So I'm doing my homework, I'm taking my time. If I happen to move forward and buy another investment property, I will try my best to document it and share any learnings or my experience here on this channel if you are interested in real estate. But other than that, that's it for today. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. Please share any learnings that you have as well, or any just nuggets of wisdom. I feel like there are probably a lot of people watching this video who are much further ahead in their financial journey than I am, or maybe just starting off. I'm sure we're all at all different places. So share what you can. Please be generous with your comments so that we can all just find value in this community. If you got anything out of this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you all next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.